Brah, where are the sickest waves in San Diego for surfing? You're about to find out on the Judge John Hodgman Show. It hurts my hand to do this, so I'm going to put this down and encourage you to press that like, that subscribe, that share, and that comment button and enjoy the show. Here we go.
Welcome to the Judge John Hodgman podcast. I'm Bailiff Jesse Thorne. This week, wetsuit. Jason brings the case against his friend Miguel. Jason and Miguel are surfing buddies in San Diego, California. Jason says that Miguel's favorite surfing spot is bogus. It's all party waves full of Jakes and Groms. Jason doesn't want to compete with other surfers. He just wants to ride. But Miguel says the waves at his beach are the sickest and tastiest. Who's right, who's wrong? Only one can decide. Please rise as Judge John Hodgman enters the courtroom and presents an obscure cultural reference.
Papa Oomau Mau. Papa Oomau Mau.
Mm-hmm.
Papa Oomau Mau. Papa Oomau Mau.
Yes.
Papa Oomau Mau. Papa Oomau Mau. Papa Oomau Mau. Papa Oomau Mau. Bailiff Jesse Thorne, please swear them in.
Jason, Miguel, please rise and raise your right hands. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God or whatever?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Do you swear to abide by Judge John Hodgman's ruling, despite the fact that he doesn't do sick voices like me?
I do.
Judge Hodgman, you may proceed.
Jason and Miguel, you may be seated for an immediate summary judgment in one of your favors. Can either of you name the piece of culture that I referenced as I entered the courtroom? I see, Jason, you are raising your hand eagerly. What was I quoting?
That is Surfing Bird by The Animals.
Whoa, you raised your hand fast for a guy who didn't even know the name of the band. You want to guess The Animals?
I'm going to guess Surfing Bird.
Surfing Bird by The Animals?
I'm going to say, okay, I said The Animals. I got to go with The Animals.
Do you want to add The Trashmen?
Or The Trashmen.
That's two guesses. What about you, Miguel?
I had no idea. I'd never.
You have no idea?
I had no idea. I guess that, hurts me a little bit in terms of.
Papa Oomau Mau, 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 Papa. Does that ring a bell, Miguel?
It does. It does. It does.
Do you also want to guess Surfing Bird by the Trashmen or the Animals? Go on. I beg you to. I beg you to.
Trash Man by the Surfbirds.
The Trashing Bird by the Surfmen.
Yes.
Miguel hasn't even heard about the bird.
He doesn't even know that the bird is the word. I can't believe I got over on that one.
Oh my goodness.
When Jason's hand went straight up, I was like, well, he knows that it's Surfing Bird. And he probably knows that it's Surfing Bird by the Trashmen, because that is, of course, probably the most famous and most used on the soundtrack of Full Metal Jacket version of that song. But even if he had gotten it absolutely right, I would have had the chance to say all guesses are wrong. Even if Jason, with his hand up, knew that Surfing Bird, which includes the lyrics Papa Oomau Mau, is actually a cover of two earlier songs. One song called Surfing Bird, one song called Papa Oomau Mau by the Rivingtons. The Rivingtons, specifically lead vocalist Carl White, tenor Al Frazier, baritone Sonny Harris, and bass singer Turner Rocky Wilson Jr., originated that song in 1962. And if you had guessed, Jason, that it was the Rivingtons, I would have zigged and zagged to say, no, I was not actually quoting that recording. I was actually recording the Rivingtons as they appeared on a 1990 episode of Night Court called Raisin Bull.
No chance. We had no chance.
And then the surviving Rivingtons, Sonny Harris, Rocky Turner Wilson Jr., and Al Frazier appeared as Mac's old bandmates, the Starlights, and performed Papa Oomau Mau on that show. And credit to Night Court for so many things, including reviving the memory of the original black artist who recorded that song. Good for them, the Rivingtons. In any case, now we are going to hear the song. It was a wipeout for both of you, by the way.
Here we go.
I mean, that was a pretty close guess. Eric Burdon and the Animals, the famous British rock group.
I got the era right.
No tastier waves than Isle of Man or whatever.
One of the fun things about the Trashmen is that they're from Minneapolis.
Oh.
They are not. They are one of the great landlocked surfing rock bands. Although, they could have gone up to Duluth to go surfing in Lake Superior. Either of you ever do lake surfing?
Never been that desperate.
You can catch some sick waves in Duluth, or so I have read. But okay, let's get into it. Who seeks justice in this courtroom?
That would be me, sir.
Jason, your hand is up. You and Miguel go surfing together. Let's do a little background here. How did you two meet, and how did you two? You're friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Until today. Now you're enemies. How did you two meet, and how did you two get into surfing?
I first heard the sound of Miguel's voice on the phone. My boss in San Diego set me up with Miguel for an interview to join my team in Hawaii. I was starting a new office for a staffing company that we both worked for, and my boss gave me an opportunity to select my team.
Yeah, so. Well, this is a tale as old as time, Jesse Thorne. All the great surfing friendships started with an off-site interview to join your staff, to staff up a team.
An HR team. Also, all great staffing companies are based in tasty surf locations. You cannot hire temps or search for executives or whatever unless there's a sweet field of tasty gnar or whatever.
And we have a photo of the two of you as younger men. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I have a photo of Tom Cruise from the movie Cocktail and another guy. Well, no, this is supposedly the two of you. Obviously, these photos will be available on the Judge John Hodgman Instagram account, as well as our show page at MaximumFun.org. But both of you are wearing Hawaiian print shirts and drinking some luminously colored drinks and smiling. This looked like fun in Honolulu. How old were you when this was taken, both of you?
I was 34.
Jason was a 34-year-old man that he reminded me very frequently of. I was 28.
Okay. And now you're older.
Much older.
You rickety old men.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, check out this. Jesse, can you see this photo of Tom Cruise over here?
This is a picture of two handsome young men who work at a staffing company.
Yeah, both are very handsome. I think you would agree that Jason on the left is pretty cruise-ish, right?
He looks like Cruise on a cruise.
Looks like Cruise on a cruise. Exactly.
These two guys are having what appears to be a tropical bro down.
Where do you live now? Oh, San Diego, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Well, that is often rated the #1 city to live in the continental United States.
For good reason.
But do you miss Honolulu so much?
Yes, that was a real heady time. We were doing well. We were single fellas running around surfing a couple times a day. We'd surf Dawn Patrol and surf again in the evening.
You really want to go on the podcast saying that now we're married and our lives are over? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's just different. Different kinds of adventures on a smaller scale.
Life has many chapters, doesn't it? But look at this chapter in your life where you're surfing. And here are some action shots of surfing. I cannot tell who it is who's up on this board in this photo. Can you tell me?
That is actually me, and Jason's taking a photo of me when I think you were injured or something like that.
Yeah, I think
your back or something like that.
That's
so it was
Miguel.
Very kind of him to talk to enough surfers, and very few have photos of themselves because nobody wants to take photos because they'd rather be surfing.
They'd much rather be surfing.
Yeah, so Jason was very kind and took photos of me, even though he couldn't surf. So.
That's why you secretly poisoned Jason and gave him a diarrhea, so he had to sit on the sand and take pictures of you. Where is this surfing locale?
I'm pretty sure this is it's just north of Swami's. Which spot? It's
Is it?
I'm not going to know the name of the surfing beach. Is this San Diego or
yes,
Hawaii?
San Diego
North County, San Diego.
John,
North County, San Diego.
John, I hate to contradict you here, but I'm going to have to ask them to list some of the funny names that surfers may have for surfing spots where they live.
Oh, we're going to be talking about that and all. Let's talk about the lingo for a second, because
Sure.
I had to go. I don't know. I did a little. I added Groms and what was the other one? Jake's.
Jake's. Can't
I
say
haven't
it.
heard of Jake's before.
Hodads.
You
I've heard
yeah.
Hodad.
Hodad. What's a Hodad?
A Hodad is like a fellow.
Is it a
about my
person who
age.
hangs around the beach and does not surf?
No, a Hodad surfs, but a Hodad is a little long in the tooth surfing, I guess.
That's you two. You two are Hodads.
We're Hodads at this
At
point.
this point,
Yeah.
yeah.
But you're
There's
also
a-
directly contradicting wavetribe.com's surfing lingo glossary that I obviously read from cover to cover about 15 minutes ago. A Grom, supposedly, what would a Grom be? Do you know that
it's a
one?
kid.
Rob's a younger kid.
That's
like,
a kid.
A young and inexperienced
Usually
surfer.
under like 15, 16.
Oh, wow.
Younger. 15, 16 and younger is like a Grom. Like 15 or 16-year-old would be with the oldest Groms, I would say.
And then the 7-year-olds are Gromlets.
yeah, that's all Grom, yeah.
And a Jake, according to this website, is a surfer who gets in the way of more experienced surfers.
Interesting. Interesting. I hadn't heard that term, but that resonates with me.
Jason, what is dropping in?
Okay, so dropping in is when you take off on a wave. So you paddle on your stomach, right?
Right.
And then when the wave energy picks you up,
Yeah.
you jump up to your feet very quickly, and then you slide down the face of the wave, and that's called dropping in. Now, if you
Okay.
drop in on someone, that's been an infraction. And
If
Miguel
you drop in on someone, they might break their neck.
they might
Okay.
get hurt.
It's
You might
dangerous,
stab
it's
them with
rude.
your board. Yeah.
What is this? What is a lineup?
You want to take that one, Miguel?
Sure. Lineup is where a group of surfers are trying to catch waves. So if you go to any surf spot and you'll see like basically a pod of surfers, that's typically the lineup.
What is a hang 10?
That's when you get both of your toes or both of your feet.
Both of your toes.
Both of your some, unfortunately.
That's what happened when Miguel had
traditionally-
someone drop in on him.
That's right.
He lost 8 toes.
When you get all 10 toes
Over the front of the board. It's on
Over
a
the-
long board.
on a longboard. Yeah, either of you guys ever hang 11?
Can't say
You ever hang 11?
that.
You want to?
No, I can't say I've ever managed to quite hang 10. Do you hang 10? I don't know if
I
I've
could
ever
get a
seen
cheater
you.
5, which is kind of like when you're like leaning back and getting five fingers over the front or five toes.
Get your digits right.
Bailiff Jesse Thorne, some guys, they hang 11.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's all I'm going to say about
Right.
that.
They hang 11. Some guys hang 11.
Yeah.
By the way, I feel like Miguel's understanding of his own body is sort of like a Vincent D'Onofrio in Men in Black situation. It's possible
Oh.
that Miguel is an alien in a man suit.
That would explain a lot.
Yeah.
Have you seen my cat? Means the world to me. Vincent D'Onofrio. Got a lot of things to say about him, but I'm going to move on. You've probably heard it before, but if you want to hear my Vincent D'Onofrio story, go over to the YouTube page for this episode over there at Judge John Hodgman Pod on YouTube, and it'll be there as a video extra. But meanwhile, let's get down to the case. Jason, you bring this dispute against Miguel. It is about where you go surfing. What is the nature of the dispute? Now that you are a couple of Hodads living in San Diego, your youth in Honolulu has been spent. You've wiped out in life and washed ashore in adulthood in San Diego. What are you fighting about, Jason?
Well, we used to surf a couple of times a day, potentially. We would surf maybe typically 3 to 4 days a week.
How did you ever make any time for staffing?
Well, you do dawn patrol. You get up at 5. You get before the sun comes up.
Dawn
You're
patrol,
surfing
you say. That's when you
That's
get
another
up
term.
first thing, right?
Mhm. And Miguel isn't typically all that keen to get out for dawn patrol.
These
He like-
days, for sure, definitely
Yeah,
not.
you
dawn
used to be a
patrol.
little more
Right,
up
I mean,
for it, but
That's how we would surf 3 times in a day.
Yeah.
You
finish work and you
4:30
Mhm.
after work, or 3 times was on a weekend, right?
Yeah.
You got it. 4:30, maybe at lunchtime. Then
So you're saying in Honolulu, you would get up at dawn, go surfing,
Mhm.
then go to work, do a little staffing
Yeah,
till 4:30, maybe eat a Spam Masubi,
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're talking.
and then you would go surfing again.
Sometimes 2-3 hours. in the session.
Wow. Every day over day.
And paddle back in the lee of the Hilton Hawaiian Village with the rainbow mosaic on it and fireworks going off over your head of a Friday evening.
Diamond Head in the back.
Reflected in the water. It was quite a... And the Dawn Patrol, by the way, the entire sky is pink and the water is like glass. So that pink sky is reflected in the water and you're swimming through candy land.
Jason.
Yes. Oh, I went to a reverie. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Time moves in one direction. That's the past, dude. It's all over for you.
Now Dawn Patrol is Down Patrol because you're in your cozy bed.
Yeah, that's right. There we go.
Down Comforter Patrol.
Is Dawn Patrol Dad Patrol for either of you dads? Do you have kids?
Oh, yes.
Either of you? Both of you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why for me,
right.
It's just not feasible.
So what are you in your are you all both in your 30s now?
I'm a 50-year-old man.
He's a 50.
What?
I'm 43.
Oh,
43.
You seem to have gotten younger.
Take it.
No, that makes sense because it's 28, 34. Yeah, I'm learning to do subtraction. That's my New Year's resolution for next year. Learn to do subtraction. Okay, so now you're grown-ups. You both live in San Diego. You don't surf that often. And that's why we're here, right, Jason? What's the issue?
That's right. So we now surf maybe once a month. And of late, and I have a couple of theories as to why this has become the case. Miguel is very good at reading the tides and the waves and the charts and so on to select surf spots. He likes to geek out of it. He's into sports. So, Jesse, he's very much into stats. And so he gets into that, right? So he's really good at finding the spots. And we all just, my other buddy, Joe, and I, we acquiesce to him typically to pick the spot. But lately, I'd say 3 and 4, maybe 4 and 5 times that we go. And this is like now once a month or twice a month, we're surfing Black's Beach.
Ooh.
And have you seen, Black's Beach is an
expert level, right?
It's expert. It can be double black diamond, that spot. It can be.
Miguel, tell me about Black's Beach. I'm pretending like I know all about it, but I know nothing.
Oh.
Black's Beach is probably one of the most beautiful beaches in all of San Diego. One of the most consistent surf breaks in all of San Diego. And, oftentimes you can kind of just go and see beautiful nature, beautiful views. I honestly would say it's an equivalent to the North Shore of Hawaii in some ways, and so that's one major reason or a few major reasons why I really like it.
And Jason made reference to double black diamond, which I presume is some expert rating.
For snowboarders and skiers, they
also known as double ski boarders, skinny ski boards. That's what they call skis.
They will rate their, the technicality or the difficulty of their, the mountain on that scale. But I wouldn't say Black's is a double black diamond every single time you go. You can go and to use the same metaphor, a green or a blue. Probably more times it's a green, I would say, than anything else.
What makes it, if it's, Jason, what makes it double black diamond or whatever? Like the intensity of the waves, the height of the waves, the rapidity of the waves?
It's the level of surfing that's there. It's well known as a good surf spot, and it's well known as being very consistent. So you'll get some of the best surfers in San Diego converge there, especially if the forecast is good. So if this,
but what makes it a good? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah.
What makes it good for surfing?
So,
waves, right? Waves?
Yes.
Right.
You're an expert, so you could probably address
I would
this
say
better
the
than
height of the waves, the texture of the water. So like if it's very, if it's very...
I think the texture is usually wet, correct?
One of them is.
Like juicy.
It could also be, it can be described as oily. It can be described as soupy.
What are you surfing in Dasani water?
John, you have to understand, it takes a little extra explanation for you to understand this, but me and Miguel are both sports guys, so we know a lot about numbers, and we can understand about oily water.
Yeah. So yeah, the conditions are what make it good, and good conditions typically are wave height, wave texture, so like if it's clean or rocky or,
right.
Very, when you're looking out of the ocean, you see like white caps, bad conditions. But given those scenarios, that's where Black's is usually one of the best because it's also wind protected. So if there's a lot of onshore, offshore wind, that's another variable to what makes waves good and bad.
And obviously, this is a well-known spot, Jason. You point out that lots and lots of good surfers go there because of these conditions, and that's your problem with it, correct?
That's one of the problems I have. So when the conditions are great, I can't compete. I don't surf enough to compete with the level of surfing that's going on there. So when it's good, I tend to have to back off of these waves so I don't drop in on somebody. Somebody's always a little deeper than me, and I'm always having to back off. And it's big, so it's a little scary. There's a big underwater canyon there, so the water goes from very deep to very shallow. So even smaller waves can pack a real punch there. So when the waves are good, longer period, there's longer space between the waves. It has this energy that builds up, and it can really sock you and hold you down all the way to the bottom. And it can be a little unpleasant. And then that's all right. If you're catching these great waves, it's worth it. But when it's good, there's other great surfers out there. I'm not in shape to compete with them. So it winds up being a lot of paddling, and I never catch any waves.
What does competing with other surfers entail? Why don't you give them all diarrhea the way Miguel did you?
You're on to something.
Beach them, literally beach them.
That's a tactic I hadn't considered.
Short of poisoning them, which I urge you not to do, what does competing with other more experienced and presumably younger surfers mean? You have to paddle faster out further to get the wave first, or what?
Yeah.
I would say pretty much exactly that. You just have to be in the right position.
Hey, I got it right.
Miguel, who gets to pick who's surfing the wave? Like, what are the rules? What's the hierarchy?
Yeah, what's the etiquette?
Yeah, you could probably have an entire podcast on that. But traditionally, it's who's ever closest to the peak when the wave breaks. So when the wave breaks, it's going to break in one direction or the other. So if it's breaking to the right, who's ever furthest to the left of that peak gets the priority for that wave, or has essentially the right to that wave. So if you are essentially to the right of that person who is going on the right, as you are further to the left, you would be cutting them off at that point. So among that pod, it can be a little competitive because if a good wave comes, a lot of people can recognize that a good wave is coming, and 6 people paddle to the wave. And yeah, it turns into a little bit of a competition of who can be claimed to be closest to the point of where the wave is breaking, as well as pop up first. Because if you pop up first, you might be able to kind of make a claim that you were in the right position.
Got it. So even if you're not closest to the peak, if you pop up first, then you might claim that territory.
You might be able to, but you might have someone that will say, no, I was closer to the peak. And that's how disputes start in the lineup typically.
I'll tell you this. I used to be the news director of KZSC-FM in Santa Cruz, California, which is a bit of a surf town.
Yeah.
And I had a guy in my news class who was quite a surfer. And there was an assignment in this class that you had to make one news story about something going on in Santa Cruz. And his news story was about surfing. It was no surprise. He had no other interests. And I learned that the consequences of breaking surf etiquette could be far beyond my wildest imaginings. They involved things that would violate the Geneva Conventions. So what are
the consequences? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's Palos Verdes. There's a pretty significant case and, investigation going on about these local surfers who kind of have claimed the wave as their territory. And as a result, people go to that wave, and if they don't know them, they don't like them, they'll slash their tires, they'll throw rocks at them, they will make it very, very unpleasant. And so it can get to the point of violence, unfortunately, if you drop in on somebody who doesn't like you and wants to have a reason to, fight you, essentially.
Jesse Thorne, do we need to go out to Black's Beach and become surf court?
Yeah, I think
they could use you.
I mean, I heard stories about people being held underwater, people being beat up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You also sent in, Jason, a video from Black's Beach, which is pretty dramatic.
Yes.
Describe this video.
There is a potential energy bomb. When you walk down this path and then you come out onto Black's Beach, you look up, there's about a 300-foot cliff of sandstone, and there's water leaking from it. And this bomb hangs over here. It adds to the drama. It's kind of exciting. But then when you see this video, this is from just a couple years ago.
Before you tell me more about the video, Jason, I think Jennifer Marmer, our wonderful producer, is about to share it with us For those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see it there. And if not, go to our show page.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Jesus Christ.
What we just saw is a genuinely terrifying, absolutely classic avalanche. Just a
Avalanche.
pure, not a snow avalanche,
No.
a side of a mountain avalanche, just rocks and nightmare rolling down and making a sound like a thousand steer on the move.
Why weren't either of you surfing that bluff collapse? That looked like a pretty tasty wave.
Not many people are going to drop in on that one. That's for sure.
When was this, Jason, that this collapse happened?
2 years ago in January.
So you're saying that Black's Beach, you could be on the beach at any moment. Let's say you haven't gone into the water. Let's say you have beach diarrhea and you're sitting on the beach. You're saying you could just be covered in an avalanche at any moment. That's part of the reason why you don't want to surf this spot.
Oh, Judge John Hodgman, this is not theoretical. There's now this has not happened at Black's Beach yet, but at a beach that I frequent, another beach in North County, there was a bluff collapse, and it ended in a tragedy. I don't want to bring our nice our podcast down, but there are consequences associated with these beach collapses.
Folks who watched the video or even heard the audio could hear that it was pretty violent and dangerous seeming. So, but this is why you don't want to go to Black's Beach?
I wouldn't say that. It's just adds to the drama and the sort of the sphincter tightening that happens when you enter this beach and you see this giant cliff over your head, and then knowing that the waves can be kind of punishing. It's all worth it if you're going to go out and catch waves. But if I'm going to surf for an hour and a half, and every wave that I fight for, I'm going to get that great feeling of that glide. I just start to glide in, and then somebody I hear a whoo, and I got to back out, and then I back, and then I wait again. And the waves, many times as they roll in, they lift and lift and lift and lift. And this is a phenomenon at Black's Beach. I don't say it's particular, but it happens a lot of Blacks, where it lifts and lifts and lifts, and it doesn't break and doesn't break. It's steeper and steeper and steeper and bigger and bigger. And then it finally breaks, and then you jump in, and it gives the competition plenty of time to line up and get position on you. So I just find I'm backing off of waves more than I'm catching them. There's other spots where we would be some of the better surfers, and I'd just catch more waves. So that's the nature of the dispute here.
Okay, so the dispute is, Miguel, you want to surf Black's Beach almost exclusively, and Jason, you'd like to go to some chumpier beaches where you're the kings, where you're the middle-aged kings.
Perfect.
Yes.
All right, I understand.
Now you got it.
My
Let me
notes
ask
here
this
say, Jason, that you just want to go to Raging Waters. Is that correct? You want to surf the boat ride at Legoland, California? Is that want to surf past that Sydney Harbor made of Legos?
That's not too far from the truth for some of the spots I've been surfing lately.
You know, I know of a lazy river inside a former Zeppelin hangar in Germany
Right.
that you could visit. Let me ask this specific question. Miguel, Jason, is there anything else about Black's Beach that I should know?
It does have an unusual feature. It is a nude beach.
Here we go. It's a well-known nude beach?
Well known, yes.
Yes.
Perfect for hanging 11.
Right there.
Ew.
I didn't say it. Do you surf in the nude, either of you?
I do not. However, when I first started surfing there, I did witness a young man surfing in the nude on a soft top surfboard. And those boards are kind of rough. And when you lie on your tummy and you jump up, I don't imagine all the skin is coming with you. It looked very uncomfortable. I can't imagine.
People like what they like, Jason.
I had the immediate thought that surfing in the nude sounds perfect for the experience of surfing because of the communing with the wave element. Seemed like it would be great in the nude. But I forgot about the fact that you have to lie on a surfboard that's covered in friction tape, basically.
Yeah, what do you both wear when you go surfing? Do you wear rash guards? Do you wear wetsuits, dry suits, San Diego chicken suits?
Dude, they're wearing their baggies.
Wetsuit typically.
Yeah.
And in the summer, board shorts and like a wetsuit jacket or wetsuit top, if you will.
Right.
A couple months a year you can trunk it.
Couple months a year you can trunk it, Jesse.
That's what I always say, dude. Couple months a year, you can trunk it.
Trunk it.
Bro, let's trunk it.
But Jason, the fact that this is a nude beach, does this affect this case?
These are distractions, Your Honor. The collapsing of the beach, the new beaches, those all actually occurred miles down from where we typically surf.
Oh.
Now the collapsing could happen at our location very easily. I recognize as a legitimate potential threat, but super outlier. That video is rare for a reason because it doesn't happen very often. And as well, the nude beach, it is further down or is further up north from where we surf typically. So therefore, it's very, very rare that you would encounter surfers who are nude. Personally, I've probably only encountered half a dozen surfers in the
nude,
nude.
Right, got it.
In the decade plus that I've been surfing up.
Jason is being a very good boy and raising his hand because he would like to object. Go ahead, Jason.
The incidents of nudity are rare, but they are unforgettable when they happen.
Yeah. It sounds like all of this really adds to what you described as the drama of Black's Beach, that there are these safety issues, these colorful characters, these intense surfer dudes. Are you not in it for the messy drama?
I've experienced the messy drama for going on 8 years now, 7, 8 years.
San Diego surfing.
Yeah, since I started surfing in this area. And I will surf there on occasion. I will enjoy the messy drama on occasion. I would acquiesce to that. But while we're only surfing once a month, I don't want it to be my spot.
You don't want it to be full Point Break.
No,
That's what I'm hearing. I'm worried that you guys are going to have to drop kick a dog into one of your enemies.
Is San Diego surf scene messier than Hawaii? Or is it kind of the same vibe?
I think they're pretty close.
Okay.
I think you have to go. When you're going to surf a certain spot, if you're gonna encounter localism. So I wouldn't say it's one is really much worse than the other. They both have localism. And if you want to avoid it, it's not very difficult.
And localism is this sort of chauvinistic practice of kicking out non-locals, however that's defined, or being mean to them. And certain beaches are more localist than others. Is that no matter where you are? Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Was that 3 months ago that I was physically threatened?
Were you physically threatened?
Yeah.
You didn't even know about Jason being physically threatened?
I was in the water, and there are ways to avoid this localism. So yes, I was in the water that day.
Tell me about the time you got bullied, Jason, and physically threatened even.
So we went to another spot, paddled out along the jetty. A jetty is a pile of rocks, basically. And then we paddled into the...
You think Judge John Hodgman doesn't know what a jetty is? Make a note. I'm going to make a note of that.
Yeah, you said I was a sports guy. I'm an art guy. I'm more familiar with Spiral Jetty,
the
legendary earthwork.
All right. I know what a jetty is. Okay, so you're over there by the jetty.
All right. For the landlocked listeners, all right, there's a jetty. We're paddling on these rocks. And then you go into the lineup. So we're to Miguel's point, we're to the left, and it's a left breaking wave. So we paddle, because you have to paddle through the lineup. We're paddling into position to be first to catch the wave.
Mm-hmm.
These middle-aged toughs,
oh boy,
if you want to call them
bad kids,
toughs, bullies, bad boys.
I do. I want to call them those.
Took exception to our being in their vicinity, and I stood up for myself, and Miguel paddled away.
Wow, bad boy retreats. Good boy takes a stand. And they threatened you, Jason? What did they say to you?
Well, I won
I'm
them
going to
over.
doink you in the eyes.
I feel like over a few moments, I won them over because I went to the end of the line, basically. Then a wave very quickly came. They all took the first wave, and then they took the second wave, and a third wave came. By then, they were all gone, and I had position all by myself on a beautiful wave, and I caught a very nice wave in. And I said, see, I'm abiding by the rules. I know what I'm doing. And then I sat Didn't have position again, and I waited 23 minutes. Then another older gentleman, tough, came and took exception again to the fact that I was there and I'd been waiting my turn. I had stood up for myself again to another. And this guy
You
was
raised your hand and you said, "Excuse me, sir."
Pardon me.
Pardon me. Let me adjust my glasses and explain to you what the rule of the lineup is.
You said, "Tell me, are you fluent in SQL? Because we're seeking for a position that..."
I did, the way I defended I humanized myself. I let them know I'm a dad. I'm just trying to surf on a weekend. I have a job here. I was an elementary school teacher at the time, and I'm trying to be somebody for the community. And that didn't win them over this time. Didn't win them over exactly, but it did diffuse the situation.
Okay.
So there were no fisticuffs.
Have you ever, how would you have fisticuffs in the water anyway? That seems like a
They
really
call you
awkward.
to the beach. They'd say, "Let's go to the beach."
Oh, they say, "Let's go to the beach."
That's the parking lot of surfing?
Meet you around behind the library at 3:00 p.m. Yeah,
Right.
meet you at the dumpster.
When surf guys get in fights, do they wear their wetsuits?
Yes, it looks if you look at this online, it looks very silly.
This sounds miserable, honestly.
This is rare, Judge Hodgman. This is rare. If it happened all the time, I wouldn't
You brought
surf.
it up, Jason. So what's the point? If it's very rare, what's the point? Where do you want to surf? What paradise non-aggro place do you want to surf?
There are a litany of other places we could surf, and Miguel is an expert on finding them. So if he were to present, say, Black's Beach and another option, given his broad expertise in the area, he could choose Cardiff Reef, he could choose Swami's, he could choose the Boneyard just north of Swami's, D Street, 15th Street. There's
Keep going. Keep
Grandview,
Wu-Tang.
avocados, tourmaline. There's Old Man's. There's
pine nut, macadamia nut, peanut, hazelnut. Why don't you want to go to any of those other places? Why, Miguel, why is going to Black's Beach more important to you than your friendship with Jason?
I want to surf the best available waves on that day, right? So if you look at the metrics of what makes a good day, you can look at Black's Beach and they will typically be better than any of those other waves that Jason identified. And so when you talk about surfing in, a lake or something like that, that's essentially what he's surfing in those days. And if you want to pull up some of that evidence that I shared with a great producer there.
Yeah. Now I'm going to say right now that Miguel sent in some screenshots of some, looks like surf reports with various charts and graphs of surfing conditions. And when you sent in it's like this homework for me to do, I crumpled up my computer and threw it away.
Miguel, analytics are ruining the surfing game.
That's right.
What is it you're trying to show me in these surf reports?
Ultimately, if you compare where Jason claimed to be surfing that day and the conditions at Black's that same day he was surfing, you can see that the waves are bigger at Black's, the wind is lower or there's less wind, and those are two very key metrics for judging waves and expectations about waves. So bigger waves, less wind, probably going to be more fun than small waves, lots of wind. And
so
that's essentially what you'll see.
On Friday, August the 9th of this year, you're comparing side by side the wave height and wind at Black's Beach versus Del Mar. Del Mar is a place where you would like to go surfing, Jason?
I surf there frequently.
Why is Del Mar your spot?
Well, it's
when I look at these pathetic waves, I really have to wonder.
Thank you.
I mean, Black's Beach is 3 to 4 feet. Del Mar, 2 to 3 feet. That's a foot less.
Yeah, why not just buy a bucket at the hardware store and flap your hand around in it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's a place where I know I can go and catch some waves. I went there the other day before work. I surfed for 40 minutes. I caught 3 nice little waves, and they were fun, and they were long, and I got bottom to top. I went right on one. I went left on one. It was 40 minutes well spent. I felt like I had some fun, and I was successful. Last time I surfed with Miguel, we surfed 90 minutes at Black's, and we both caught closeout. I caught 3 closeouts. He caught 2 closeouts, and that's when it just dumps on the beach, and you just go straight. That's no fun.
A closeout is no fun.
Closeout's no fun.
I don't know. You ever been to Marshall's?
What would be your ideal surf session, Jason? What you described, Delmar? Tell me.
Gosh, one of the fun parts of surfing for me is, and it's a ritual, is you go and you stand on the shore together with your cup of coffee and you look out on the waves and you decide, are we going to surf here?
Together with your cup of coffee or your friend?
Together with your cup of coffee and together with your friend with his cup of coffee. So there's, I guess 4 of us with 4 cups. So we all look out on the waves and we decided we're going to surf here. We're going to look for another spot. Now you can get caught up in looking until the time runs out. You can't surf anymore. I like that part of the ritual. We show up, we stand there in our puffy coats, sip our coffee, look at it, decide, suit up together and go out. So if you're at Black's, you walk down about a quarter mile before you even see the waves. So you're committed. You're surfing there regardless of what the waves look like.
Mm-hmm.
So I would surf at a place like Cardiff Reef, a place like
Santa Leo Nut, Pipes Nut, Cardiff Reef Nut.
Yeah, there's spots we haven't even surfed, like at Solana Beach. There's some spots.
You're saying your favorite part of surfing
explore a little more
is before you even go in?
Yeah, that's part of it. It's the chat, it's the catch up, it's the hangout. And then the suit up and then the paddle out and the hang. Yeah.
Well, I would contend you actually get that at Black's even more because you have a longer walk. We can get into a conversation. We can catch up with each other because in the water, it is very difficult. You want to be focused on catching waves when you're in the water. So wherever we surf, presumably we would not be engaged in super amount of conversation, but that time of, if the distance from our cars to the waves is too close, well, then that reduces our amount of time to chill. So Black's, you probably have a good 15, 20-minute walk to get to the beach, which is a beautiful walk down.
Yeah, but that's not what Jason wants. Jason wants to stand on the beach together with his coffee and his friend. Doesn't want a 20-minute walk. Why are you telling Jason what makes him happy? Jason knows what makes him happy. Just tell me what's wrong with Jason's dream.
Of surfing other spots than Black's?
Yeah, what's wrong with
because
Jason's dream?
The waves are not as good, and I would ask Jason, when he thinks about the best waves that he's caught in San Diego, have they been when you've gone on your own, or have they been when we go and I make the decision? Where
is the most epic wave you have caught? Top 3 epic waves in San Diego.
Okay. So Sunset Cliffs. Yep. So I got to admit, Sunset Cliffs, I've caught incredibly epic waves at Sunset Cliffs. I remember the whole thing to this day.
Miguel, Sunset Cliffs, what's wrong with that beach? Is that a diarrhea beach? Is that bad? Bad beach?
No, nothing is wrong with Sunset Cliffs, but the conditions for Sunset Cliffs are much more rare than they are for good conditions like Black's. Like, so if you were to compare the two, the best waves probably are at Sunset Cliffs in comparison to Black's, but the conditions for good and epic waves, if you will, are going to be more frequent at Black's than they will at Sunset
we
Cliffs.
know that you love Black's Beach so much.
He doesn't love Black's Beach. This guy loves his model. This guy loves looking at his sine waves and his...
I didn't even notice these things are like perfect examples of swell and like.
Oh, that's true.
Conditions.
We're looking at the neon art in the background of the studio there in San Diego. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, number 2 epic wave. We heard number 3 epic wave. Number 2 epic wave. Jason.
I got to admit that one of them's at Black's.
There we go.
I got to admit one of them's at Black's. Another was, let's say, Grandview. Because I used to surf there a lot, and I got really, really lucky there. I'm thinking, you might have been there that day.
Yeah, no, Grandview's got good waves.
Jason, you've raised your right hand a few times to indicate that you wanted to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Would you do me a favor and raise both of your hands above your head? And you too, Miguel? I do not see that you are handcuffed together. Why don't you just go? You may put your hands down. Why don't you just go surf where you want to surf?
Well, I like surfing with my buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, I do surf by myself, but when I surf with Miguel, I want to surf a spot where I'm not just going to get, called off of waves the entire time I'm there.
How you mentioned that you are, in your young middle age, let's say. And Miguel, you're in your baby middle age. How much longer do you feel your bodies can surf together?
I see guys out there in their 70s that rip on shortboards.
Right.
All right.
I hope to, until I die.
It's a matter of frequency, and it can't be too frequent when you get a little older. If you start feeling some aches and pains, you got to back off for a few weeks. And that's how you get longevity in surfing.
So you still have a lot of surfing and friendship ahead of the both of you.
Oh, yeah.
Got it. Okay. It says here, Jason, that your ideal ruling indeed is to alternate, to go to Black's Beach one time and then another one of your bunny trail beaches another time. Why is that not acceptable? That seems like a great compromise, Miguel. Why is that not okay?
I think because you are ignoring the possibility of a great session at Black's if the conditions are better.
You love Black's Beach more than you love your friend.
Judge Hodgman,
Just
why
say
don't
it.
you want to listen to the model? Listen to the model.
That's right. Listen to the stats. Listen to the data.
You love your stats, you love your data, you love your charts and graphs, and you love Black's Beach more than you love your friend. Isn't that
That's
right?
not true. No, that's not
Turn
true.
to your friend right now and say, I love that beach more than you.
I would not say that. I would not say that. I don't love that beach.
You don't have to say it. Your actions show it.
I think I know what's better for him than
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
like a child who, wants to touch the stove or wants to, do something that is not safe for them or good for them.
He's your
Sometimes you
senior,
just have
Miguel,
to-
and you're treating him like a grommet?
What do you think he is? Some kind of grommet?
Yeah, you think he's some kind of grommy?
Sometimes he is, unfortunately. And I think I've shared this in our initial discussions. One of the reasons around why I choose Blacks is to regulate Jason, because Jason has at times done the cardinal sin of, dropping it on me personally and prevented me from being able to experience what he's describing as that epic.
Wait,
or
you're bringing
best
up when did
wave.
Jason drop in on you?
Oh
And
my goodness. So many times Jason has dropped in on me and he just laughs when he does it, right? He just laughs at me. He doesn't say sorry or anything like that. And going back to going back to like how we will analyze waves, how we will look at waves, how we will position ourselves to catch waves, Jason will sit right to the left of me or right of me, whichever is the more priority positioned, so that he can catch the waves that I personally kind of identified as like, hey, this is the spot. Because when it comes to being in the water, the lineups, especially at Blacks, which makes it so great, there can be multiple lineups in a certain break. So at Blacks, you have probably 3 or 4 lineups within a certain area.
For
At
those of
another
you who
spot-
aren't watching the YouTube and are just listening, Miguel has brought out a whiteboard
Yeah.
and is putting up a bunch of magnets and index cards and connecting them with yarn at this point. Jason, are you secretly the bad boy of surfing? I thought you were the good boy of surfing, but now it turns out you're the bad boy. You're sniping other people's waves and you're dropping in on your friend.
We surf with a lot of people who learned when they were grommets, when they were 7, 8 years old, right? And they've been surfing their whole lives. I started surfing at 34 years old. So
Wow.
I had to
Wow.
put up with kids 7 years old saying, I go, uncle, and then having position and go on me. So I learned over time, but I will admit in the
What
first
did you
few
learn exactly? How to steal a wave from a 7-year-old? What?
No, I learned to back
You
off.
learned to
of
dominate
7-year-olds.
grommets.
Grommets dominated me for years in Hawaii.
Okay.
And so I will admit, when I was early surfing, I leaned on Miguel heavily to figure out where to be to catch waves, because he started well ahead of me. Now, I think he's hanging on to a very old narrative. I haven't dropped in on Miguel like that in many years. It's been many years since I've dropped in on Miguel like that.
Why do
I
you
think
think
he's
he's bringing?
misremembering.
Why do you think he's bringing it up now?
I think he's just trying to win an argument.
I think I've heard everything I need to in order to make my decision. I'll be back in a moment with my verdict.
Please rise as Judge John Hodgman exits the courtroom. Miguel, how are you feeling about your chances in this case right now? Have you beaten some sense into your best friend?
I feel okay, but judge is judge, and I will abide by his ruling. And but I think at the end of the day that my understanding of where the best places to surf on any given Saturday, I value that time just as much as Jason. Jason makes it sound like I don't care about catching waves, and I very much care about catching waves. I just kind of want to catch very good waves, and so that's why I maybe persuade with a lot of influence and using that data to say, hey, let's go to Blacks, because oftentimes all of those metrics lead to Blacks.
Jason, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. I think I made a pretty good case, and what I'm asking for is reasonable. I don't think it's a big ask to go to a different spot. And if Miguel is so good at his charts, I'd feel like rather than picking the obvious choice that everybody is aware of, he would use his charts and graphs to find a rarefied spot where we show up and nobody's there.
Have you guys ever heard, John, I'm including you in this, have you guys ever heard the story of the time my dad had an incident on the beach in Hawaii?
No.
Okay, well, this is a video exclusive. This is a video shorts exclusive. So go to the YouTube if you're listening to the audio. If you're listening to the audio, we'll be back in just a moment with Judge John Hodgman's verdict. But if you're watching the video, so one time we were driving to college. It was maybe my sophomore year. My dad was going to drop me off at the dorms. And he said, we're listening to Sly and the Family Stone. He said, whatever happened to Sly Stone? And I said, oh, I think he's alive, but he's zonked out, you know? And he said, what, like a drug-induced psychosis? And I was like, yeah, I think so. And he said, hey, did I ever tell you about my drug-induced psychosis? I'm like, well, Father, no. Never have you mentioned your drug-induced psychosis, Daddy dearest. And he said he lived in Hawaii on the Big Island near Hilo for a few years. And he said at one point he had eaten magic mushrooms in his omelets every day for a week.
Huh.
He went down to the beach.
On purpose. This wasn't someone sneaking him some beach diarrhea in order to keep him off the waves.
Oh, no, this is very much on purpose. Yeah.
Okay.
Very much on purpose. He went down to the beach and he took off all his clothes and he got in a sinkhole in a rock. And he said he was up to his waist in water in this rock sinkhole up on the beach. And he had this vision that there were these 12 huge men they were each like 12 feet tall, and they represented all of the races of the world. And they were judging whether he should live or die.
Oh my God.
This was a dark time in my dad's life.
Wow.
It's not that far out of a very difficult experience in the Navy. He was an alcoholic, a lot going on. So he was having this vision, and he was arguing his case as to why he should live to these 12 huge men of every race. While he was in the middle of arguing his case, a couple of Hawaiian guys came and said, hey, Howley, get off our beach. And my dad was busy, obviously, because it was like
having an hallucination.
Yeah, mortal stakes for my dad here. He had to deal with these 12-foot tall men, you know.
Right.
Hawaiian guys can be pretty big, but the Hawaiian guys pulled him out of the sump hole and started beating the crap out of him.
Oh, no.
But my dad was like, but it was fine. I was recently out of the Navy, so I was still really strong. He's like,
okay.
I got them off of me and ran into the ocean, and they didn't want to get their clothes wet, so they didn't follow me. And then they started picking up rocks and throwing them at me. And my dad is like, and I was super high, so I thought the best thing to do would be to catch the rocks.
Wow.
So my dad was catching the rocks and not catching the rocks while these guys threw. And he said eventually they stopped throwing rocks at him and they said, hey, Howley, come back inside, which is like a derogatory term for a white guy in white. Come back onto the beach. We decided we're not going to beat you up anymore. And my dad was like, all right. And he came back and they started beating him again.
No.
And that happened twice, 2 times. So he went back into the water. They convinced him they were done. He came back and they started beating him up again. And he said the only thing that kept him from really being permanently hurt was eventually an old Hawaiian lady came out on the beach and started shooting rock salt at them.
Shooting rock salt with a rock salt?
Like with a shotgun full of rock salt. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And so the guys ran away, and then my dad was like, he said this to me, I swear to God. He said to me, he goes, I had a really good idea. And I think that when he said that, I think that he meant like he still believed this to be a good idea. I'm pretty sure. And he's like, I was naked and I was pretty out of my gourd. So he's like, I figured I'd just walk along the highway until I got arrested. Anyway, he ended up in psych jail for like 2 months.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
And then only his best friend from like high school, Rich Stoll, and his wife Lorna figured out he was in jail, got him out of psych jail, and got him a job. My dad apparently, I also at this point found out that my dad had most of a master's degree in urban planning, which I had no idea about. And apparently, while he was on the mushrooms, he had been getting a master's degree in urban planning, and he got a planning job in Minneapolis. And he said, I flew to Minneapolis, and he said, and I got sober. And the only reason that I got sober was it was too cold to go outside and buy drugs.
Wow.
Anyway, that's just a fun story my dad told me one time.
Well,
Wow.
one time when my kids were littler, and actually little, they had a lemonade stand on our street in Park Slope. I was keeping an eye on them, but keeping a distance because I wanted them to, have independence and be running their own business and so forth. But I did notice this one creepy dude just standing there with a smirk on his face, watching them. And I remember very distinctly, he was smoking a cigarette, but he was holding the cigarette behind his back when he wasn't actually inhaling it, as if to hide it from my kids. And I'm like, this dude is really creepy. And then I realized, oh, it's Vincent D'Onofrio. He's just D'Onofrio. That's what he does. That's my Vincent D'Onofrio story. Look, your story was better, but I promised that I would tell it on the YouTube. And so I did.
Both are
So there
great.
we go.
Both are great.
Terrific stories. Let's get back to the case.
We'll see what Judge Hodgman has to say about all this in just a moment. Judge John Hodgman, we're taking a quick break from the case, and we have some amazing holiday stuff in the Max Fun store at maxfunstore.com, including, among other things, the triumphant return of our Canadian House of Pizza and Garbage t-shirts, which is incredible, John, because as I understand it, they don't even have Christmas in Canada.
Strange, but true. Yes, 'tis the season for generosity, and indeed, the Canadian House of Pizza and Garbage t-shirt, still one of the greatest fan favorites of all time, and it's back for a limited time, along with the Canadian House of Pizza and Garbage beverage koozie, a brand new product over there in the Max Fun store in standard can size and slim can, which I think is what they have in Canada. And Jesse Thorne, we have some weird dad merch, but also some new merch, right? In the weird department?
Weird Mom merch. You can get our Weird Mom or Weird Dad logo designed by the legendary Aaron Draplin now on unisex tees, on ladies tees, and on bumper stickers, all at maxfunstore.com.
Stick your bumps with a weird dad or weird mom sticker. By the way, you mentioned Aaron Draplin, and we both mentioned Canada. Aaron's from Portland, Oregon. Are we doing a show in Portland next year? We absolutely are. Are we doing a show in Canada, in Vancouver, for the first time in a number of years? Yes, we are. And if your favorite Judge John Hodgman listener is in either of those places and enjoys experiences, we have a great idea. Give them a ticket to see us live on tour in Portland, Oregon, Vancouver, British Columbia, or Seattle, Washington. Unfortunately, Los Angeles is sold out, but there are still tickets available at San Francisco Sketchfest in San Francisco as well. You can get these tickets at MaximumFun.org/events right now for you or someone you love. MaximumFun.org/events.
And I want to remind you that if you're looking for a really special gift this holiday season, you can check out my antique and vintage store, the Put This On Shop, at putthisonshop.com. Not only do we have our ordinary array of antique home goods and jewelry for men and women and beautiful handmade pocket squares and so on and so forth, vintage clothing, all kinds of beautiful things. We also have some new products handmade in the shop right now. We have some incredible, what we're calling our Japanese selvage to selvage scarves, which are made from narrow gauge woven vintage Japanese textiles. There's a few different ones with hand finished ends that are just absolutely breathtakingly beautiful. And our Put This On ball caps are back. We have a few different designs, including the dad caps, which have been very popular in a few new colorways.
This is literally a cap that says DAD on it, Dad. It's really hot.
Yeah, it is. And we have our New York and California hats, which feature the outlines of those great states. Those might be my favorites we've ever made. And our classic Put This On ball cap, which has been gone for many years, but is a simple white star on a blue background for when you want to wear a ball cap that goes with everything. Those are all handmade in the United States by a human being with soft leather sweatbands and real wool flannel and leather size adjusters. Just really beautiful pieces that you'll have for many, many years. And indeed, one of the reasons that I brought them back is because my friend Brian Fernandez was telling me that he wore his hat every day for like 8 years, and it was finally starting to tatter. He said, "Can you please make them again so that I can buy one?" So I said, yes. You can find all that stuff online at putthisonshop.com. And if you use the code JUSTICE, all the small stuff in the store ships for free in the United States.
I love putthisonshop.com. It's a great place to get gifts, especially for the people that you think have everything, but you didn't realize they needed a 1940s white floral metal drink tray or a poodle print rayon pocket square. Unfortunately, you can't get 1989 Topps Batman Second Series trading cards there, right, Jesse? Those are not available at putthisonshop.com?
I believe we do have those as well as Rad Dudes trading cards.
Well, then there you go. Putthisonshop.com, maxfunstore.com, maximumfun.org/events. Click on all of those links when you're thinking about being generous this holiday and buying gifts. And thank you.
Let's get back to the case. Please rise as Judge John Hodgman re-enters the courtroom, having heard my story about my dad on the beach in Hawaii and the 12 huge men judging whether he should live or die, and told his story about Vincent D'Onofrio and the lemonade stand, and presents his verdict.
Giving my story away there. All right. Not much more to it than that. In any case, you may be seated, Miguel and Jason. First of all, thank you very much for this education on surfing. I've learned a lot. And two things I've learned is I definitely want to go to Hawaii. I've always wanted to go, and I've never gone, and I really need to go there. And one thing about my visit to Hawaii is I will not go surfing. I had no idea how rough and tumble this was. I thought surfing was chilled out. I thought it was this peaceful, I don't love sports, but I have an affection for those sports that are part of obsessive personal perfection, the solo sports where you are lifting a weight or walking a distance or biking, and I thought surfing was this meditative, calm thing. I didn't know that you were going to be doinked left and right and have your eyes gouged out and people hold you under the water and 7-year-old grommlets dancing on your head and giving you beach diarrhea, and then you get buried underneath a bluff collapse. This is too much, too competitive. I didn't realize how competitive surfing was. And I'm never going to do it. I'm sorry. I mean, I admire both of you, not only for doing it, but also learning it relatively late in your lives, at least in Jason's case, and continuing to do it. I don't think my body would be able to tolerate it. And I'm glad, because I like having my eyes and I like not pooping on the beach. So there you go. But I'm very glad that you two continue to surf, and I'm glad that you get so much pleasure out of it, but you get a different kind of pleasure. My wife, who is a whole human being in her own right, has a sister who is also a whole human being in her own right, and they have an older sister, and they have two different, she also has a younger sister, but that's not part of the story. She and her older sister have two different ways of looking at the world, which my wife has termed as being one of them, and this is a common term if you look it up. It's a psychological term. It's maximizer versus satisficer. And a maximizer personality is someone who basically wants to catch the best waves and will wait and wait and wait and do a lot of research until they determine which is the maximal wave to catch. Whereas a satisfier just wants satisfying waves and will not do all of that research, but instead be satisfied, right? With whatever comes their way. In my wife and her sister's world, my wife is more of a satisficer in terms of all kinds of life choices. I had never heard this term before until my wife, who's a whole human being in her own right, spelled it out for me. And I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of how people understand themselves in the world and how you guys might understand each other's relationship and your individual personalities. It makes a lot of sense, even though satisficer is not a word. And it makes me really mad every time I hear it and say it. Maximizer is a word. You are one, Miguel. And I hate to say it, Jason, but you're a satisficer, which is not a word. It doesn't even sound good. It doesn't even sound, it's not even, shouldn't even I mean, English is a living language, but this one should not be allowed. But I mean, it speaks to the problem that you are facing as you go forward in your lives, as your friendship and your bodies mature and you have less time to spend surfing together. It is understandable that you would deal with that reduced surfing time differently, that you, Miguel, will use your charts and graphs, trying to maximize your surfing experience, whereas you, Jason, are more of a satisficer. You want to spend that limited time getting as much surfing in as possible. And both approaches are correct. And yet they are not, they are essentially mutually exclusive in terms of the experience that you like. You can't, you know, when Jason said, I like standing on the beach with my friend, having coffee and not surfing almost as much as I like surfing. And you're like, well, there's a 20-minute walk to Black's Beach. That's not what he likes. Respect the fact that you are different and you're never going to get the exact same kind of pleasure from surfing. And you should be able to make a chart and figure out how to satisfy or maximize both of your experiences. Which is to say, your friends, Miguel, you got to compromise. You can't just be Black's Beach every time. You can go to Black's Beach on your own and have that experience, that maximal experience that you like. And Jason can go to Bunny Trail Beach or whatever it is and float around in the little limpid waves and be satisfied by that individually. But if you're going to be together, you're going to have to trade off. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. And I was just going to go ahead and rule in Jason's favor. But Jason actually presented an even better solution, which is that you use your charts and graphs for good. If you're doing the research, find a beach that is not Black's Beach every other time that has the kind of waves you want, or at least the potential for it. Maximize your non-Black's Beach experience by going to your charts and graphs. But you have to alternate back and forth every now and then. I know what a jetty is. This is the sound of a gavel. Judge John Hodgman rules, that is all.
Please rise as Judge John Hodgman exits the courtroom. Miguel, how are you feeling?
I can live with that, you know? I'm okay. I think that's a good point, actually. I hadn't really ever considered maximizing for another spot just because I do have that much faith in Black's Beach, but I can live with it.
You have that much faith.
For my good buddy that I love so much.
Jason,
Sure.
How do you feel?
I feel great. This is great. I mean, Miguel really is good at prognosticating, and I'd love to see him apply that and actually find some spots where it's good and not crowded. Yeah.
Jason, Miguel, thanks for joining us on the Judge John Hodgman podcast.
Thank you.
Another Judge John Hodgman case is in the books. We're going to have swift justice in just a second. First, our thanks to Redditor Banjo Solo, who named this week's episode. If you want to name a future episode, join us on Reddit at maximumfun.reddit.com. That's where we ask for our title suggestions. And it's fun even just to see them. They're always very fun. Evidence and photos from the show are on our Instagram account at instagram.com/Judge John Hodgman. And of course, on the episode page for this episode at maximumfun.org. You can find us on TikTok and YouTube at Judge John Hodgman Pod, including Judge John Hodgman's story about Vincent D'Onofrio and my story about my dad's drug-induced psychosis.
Let me just tell you, one of these stories is not like the other. Because one of these stories is unlike anything I've ever heard before in my life.
Follow and subscribe. You can also see the nice neon waves that were behind our litigants this week at their studio in San Diego. Thanks. Do we got anybody up on the Apple Podcasts this week?
We do. I want to thank JDG Instagrams. That's JDG Instagram Z over on Apple Podcasts for the lovely review and, I dare say, 5-star rating. JD Instagram says, listening to this on 11/6/2024. Necessary serotonin boost on a bleak day. Snorted out loud. Thank you. Thank you, JD Instagrams. You know, it is not only our pleasure and privilege to keep you company and offer you distraction during bleak times, but frankly, you offer us distraction and keep us company too. So I'm grateful. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, why not go over there and leave a few nice words if you like it. Maybe even give us a 5-star review. If you think we've done the job, you can do the same over at Pocket Casts now, or you can comment on this episode on Spotify or leave a comment on YouTube at youtube.com/@JudgeJohnHodgmanPod. Your likes, your shares, your subscribes, all of your ratings and comments, all of this stuff helps listeners find the show. So if you're enjoying this episode, make sure to tell a friend about it any way you can.
I love to hear from somebody who says, I started listening to Judge John Hodgman because my pal told me it was good. Tell a pal. Your pal needs a nice new comedy podcast to listen to. Tell him to check out Judge John Hodgman. We're Webby Award winners. You just lead with that. Hey, do you like Webby Award winners, you can say?
Everyone does. Everyone loves a Webby Award winner.
Everybody does. Judge John Hodgman was created by Jesse Thorne and John Hodgman. This episode engineered by Brian Stamp at Signature Sound in San Diego, California. Hey, John, our friend San Francisco comedian Scott Simpson?
I do. Very, very funny man.
Very funny guy.
Good guy.
Years ago, Scott guested on an episode of Jordan Jesse Go that we recorded live on stage at San Diego Comic-Con.
Very famous Comic-Con.
Very famous Comic-Con. We ended up having our mics cut and getting escorted off stage.
Whoa.
It was a whole thing. But before we were escorted on stage, Scott said my favorite thing that anyone's ever said about San Diego, which is, did you know what the town sigil is, what the crest is, the city crest for the city of San Diego?
Oh, no. I mean, I don't know. Maybe a submarine?
It's a volleyball with a flip-flop rampant. Okay.
Scott Simpson, everybody. Look him up.
Scott Simpson. Our social media manager, Natty Lopez. The podcast edited by AJ McKeon. Our video producer, Daniel Spear. Our producer is Jennifer Marmer. Now, swift justice, small disputes, and quick judgment. Turducken Everest on the Maximum Fun subreddit asks, my wife gets very upset with the first tiny ding we get in a new car. I find it liberating. From that point forward, I don't worry so much about where I park the car. Should I care more or should she care less?
Well, you and your wife, Turducken Everest, are also facing a maximizer versus satisficer discrepancy in how you process distress in your life. I hate that ding. That initial ding really hurts. I haven't owned a lot of cars in my life, but when something happens to it, it used to send me into a very, very deep soul hole for a long time, because you feel like this perfect thing that I have maximized is no longer perfect anymore. Whereas you are more of a satisficer. You're like, great, it was going to happen anyway. And just the life comes at you and sometimes you get dinged. I'm glad to say that I have moved more in your direction, Turducken Everest, in that I do believe that life comes at you and you get dinged, and it's good to be able to breathe through it. But that isn't to discredit the way that your wife feels. If your wife feels that way, it's not a question of who should care more or less. You're going to care exactly as much as you are ever going to care. And you might have a very different temperamental difference around that. And each way is equally good. And you can't really change it, but you can learn how to tolerate that distress a little bit more effectively. And for that, I would recommend looking up dialectical behavioral therapy online and looking at their distress tolerance skills. They helped me a lot in life and with regard to car ownership and even with regards to catastrophic world events. So I'll leave you with that.
Judge Hodgman, I got to tell you this. I had never had a new car until I bought a Volvo station wagon about maybe 6 years ago, something like that. I've since sold it, but
because it got that one ding and you couldn't look at it anymore.
It had a couple little, I mean, I park on the street in the city.
Yeah.
Dings are going to happen. It had a few
dings are going to happen.
But you know what? Maybe 4 years into me owning the car, I was looking at these dings and I was like, there's got to be a guy. I got a guy, John.
You got a guy?
I got a good paintless guy, and I had him come out. There was one ding that was particularly unpleasant. And I said, what if you just did all of them? Could I give you an extra $100 and you just do all of them, all these little ding dongs? And he said, yeah, sure. I'm already here. Oh, you got to get a paintless guy. Paintless PDR, paintless dent removal. Get a guy. He comes out to your house. You give him your $300 and he just fixes it all. Oh, it's such a dream.
Turducken, write down these 6 letters. PDR for paintless dent removal. and DBT for dialectical behavioral therapy. With those 6 letters, I think you and your wife will be able to confront a lot of distress in your life. Hey, speaking of distress, it's December and it's dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon now. Boo. It's dark and it's cold. It's getting to be wintertime. You're probably staying inside with other people. When you are trapped with other people in a cabin in the woods, things tend to happen. Demons come out, or you just start fighting with each other. What are some of your deep, dark, cold wintertime disputes that we can settle for you? Did your friend promise to knit you a hat last year and you still haven't seen it? Is your partner trying to turn up the heat even though you think they should really just put on a sweater? Did your roommates veto the 2005 film The Family Stone for your upcoming movie night? Again?
They wanted to watch Home for the Holidays.
Does your daughter, who's a whole human being in your own right, is she going to force you to watch Love Actually again?
No. Again?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
It's a whole thing. If you've got winter-related disputes, send them to me and Jesse and Jennifer and the whole J Squad at MaximumFun.org/JJHO. That URL again, MaximumFun.org/JJHO.
No matter what the dispute is about, it is the lifeblood of our program. So go to MaximumFun.org/JJHO and submit it to us right now. And John, no matter who you are out there in the Judge John Hodgman listening audience right now, and I extend this to Jen and Daniel, AJ listening to John, you yourself, may the 12 huge men representing every race of the world judge that you deserve to live. We'll talk to you next time on the Judge John Hodgman podcast.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
supported
directly
by you.